All right, tonight we have some degree of bad weather, so it's just me, Michael Schultz, with Michael Christian here. We're going to do a few names and then we'll be out of here. Starting out tonight with Howard L. Wright, who was born 1920 and died in 2012. Michael, you said you knew him.
Yeah, they lived in this area for a lot of the time that I knew them, and they was around Lewisburg some, and they lived, I think, in the Sharon Grove area part of the time, and they wasn't like regular attendees at the church, but they did come some here. I think they went to other churches some, and but I remember him, and like I said, his nickname, they called him Zippy, and I don't know exactly what part that come from, but he was kind of a short man, and I remember that about him, and kind of small in frame and all, and but he was. I was around him a little bit. It was interesting to talk to.
What did he do for a living? Did you know?
No, I think at the time I knew him, he'd already retired and was just doing odd things around, when I really was around him more. And he just, what I remember, he helped out his family, other branches, his wife's family, and some of them, just kind of done odd things for them. I think he did a little carpentry work, I believe, is what he done.
Well, with Miss Josephine, his wife, born 1925, died 2023 here. That's just scarcely 2 years ago now. Did you know her or just know of her?
Just some. I was around her more that same time period, and then as she got older, I'm not even sure if she was in this area her last years. Mm-hmm. They had a adopted son, and I think he helped take care of her, and it could have been around the Bowling Green area, or maybe even Glasgow. I don't remember for sure, but I was thinking it was, off from here that he helped take care of her in her older years.
Okay. Well, the last two here on our list that I've made, at least for the people that are interred at the cemetery, are Dono Yarnell, who was born 1927, died 2021, and Rosa Mae Devine Yarnell, born 1929, died 2022. I know you knew Dono for a long time.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about Dono.
Yeah, he was always real active here in church when, they got involved. I think Myrtle Pogue actually invited them maybe to come here when they first moved right there close to her. Mm-hmm. And they got to come in, and he was very involved in the church and was always interested. He done a lot of little wood projects, and he was real good at making little wooden puzzles and other things, and he had little crosses he made and other things, and he was always really interested in the church. Mm-hmm. For somebody that didn't come here, till they was on up in years, I didn't know how involved he would be, but he was really involved in church, and he was always interested in doing things for the church.
Yeah, I know. I've heard a lot of people say that he was really involved with the Team Kid program, and I don't know if I have it right, but maybe that he was involved when you guys did the Oklahoma ministry, going out there, or maybe just sending things.
I think he made several things that we carried, with us to go out there, and but like you said, he was always involved as far as, what could he do, or and the Team Kids, he was involved with that.
Yeah, when I first started here, the landing down in the basement where we have the missions class right now, it was just full of boxes of birdhouses. And I guess that was one of the things that he made, was just, and it was like kits. It was kits that had been clearly made. It wasn't manufactured, but you had all the parts to put together your own birdhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that was something that he had, I was told that that was something that he had put together for the kids for like a VBS, thing or something.
Right.
Of course, you say he was rather old when you got to know him. He was very old when I got to know him. I come in 2019, and then he passed in 2021, so he was very, very old by the time I got to know him. Look here, he's 94. So he was essentially deaf by the time I got to know him. I remember he couldn't hear a thing I preached. Mm-hmm. But when he went to the assisted living center there in Bowling Green, I went to visit him a couple of times, and he was so ready to go, almost to the point of where he was just disappointed that he wasn't dying. Mm-hmm. I remember it was when COVID had first come in, and they made me sit on the other side of this plexiglass divider between me and him. And I was trying to talk to him, but he's more or less deaf, and the glass wasn't helping. Mm-hmm. And I had to wear a mask, and so he couldn't read my lips. Mm-hmm. And so I was shouting at him here in the foyer of this assisted living. It was Sky in Bowling Green, and all he kept saying was, "I just don't know. I just don't know." And I could tell he was really battling, trying to figure out what in the world was going on that he was still here. Because he had his mind about him. He wasn't saying, "I just don't know," as in somebody that has dementia. He had his mind. Rosie had been put into the assisted living center at that point too, and her mind was pretty well gone. And he was really disheartened by that. And I don't think he could really stand it. He was completely confused at what God was doing, keeping them alive at that point. Because he wasn't well, but he had his mind. But she was completely out of her mind and physically unwell. I never really saw Rosie in the church. Dono was always here. He sat one row behind the pole on my right hand facing the congregation, and was very faithful to be here anytime he could be. But I never saw Rosie at church at all. Went to visit her at her house a couple of times, but she was very ill. What did you know of her?
Yeah, I mean, back earlier when she was able, she would always be there with him and involved, and she was always interested in like the prayer list. I remember she wanted to know even to the point of maybe even having it wrote down so she could have that. And Dono, I know he was in one branch of the military, but he never talked about that, or he wasn't that kind of person that would boast what he had done in the military or whatever. But I know he was part of it. But he, was always to me so kind and helpful to everyone. That he was more interested in that.
Yeah,
he could do.
And he was involved. I know he was involved with 2 separate wars, but I believe he was in 2 branches. I think he served maybe in one branch during the Second World War, because he was young then, and he served in a separate branch through the Korean War. And I'd asked him about that one time when I was at his house, and he was just like you're describing. I mean, he was always very kind and courteous, but even when I asked him directly about it, he said, "Oh, well, I didn't get involved in the Second World War until well into the war, and then, the Korean conflict." And just really didn't have any interest in talking about. Yeah. But he was decorated. I mean, you see the young photos of him, and he was very active in the military. And but it was the same thing at his funeral. They didn't have anybody actually officiate his funeral. The family just got up and spoke. And the things that they talked about were obviously all family things. They didn't mention any of his real past. They just talked about how they knew him as a grandfather and as a father and all this. And I believe his grandson is named after him. Of course, his daughter is Donna, and then I believe she has a son named Dono. So very loved by his family there. But like you're saying, it wasn't for accolades or things that a person might put on a resume. It was just the person that he was.
Yeah. He, I know we've done a lot of those, like I was talking about, wood crafts and puzzles and everything, and he was always interested in that and trying to give that to kids or whoever, you know. And I think he even set up at a flea market or two, you know, selling some of those puzzles, and that's where he had the cross that he made, the small crosses that had the one nail laying there, and it said, I forgot the saying, but it was like something like, you know, if you feel like you're hurting or bad, off or whatever, just take this nail and push it into your hand. And I think he give them away, even like at the flea market. But he was interesting to be around like that for, you know, what he was wanting to do for others.
Yeah. Well, he was always a really kind and courteous guy. And even though I knew he couldn't hear a thing I preached, he was always encouraging. Like he'd, you know, shake his head, smile at me, good job, because I was brand new. And so he was encouraging, and I knew full well he didn't hear a thing I said. But he was there anyway. And that's meaningful too, because he's not getting anything out of this. He's not coming for him. He was coming purely for my benefit, to have somebody there to support me, and for everybody else to, you know, I'm sure he didn't think of it this way, like it was some pleasure to see him, but I'm sure everybody thought of it that way, that, you know, we're glad Dono's here. There's a seat that's empty without him here. That kind of thing.
She had a organ that she donated to the church, and she might have been able to play maybe some, or maybe she couldn't physically, you know, do it anymore when she wanted to donate it to the church, because, you know, she wanted it to be played out here, you know, if somebody could. And at that time, it was several years ago, you know, there was some people that could play it, and you know, they done that. I mean, they were very involved with the church.
Okay. Well, brief as it is, we'll stop there for tonight, and we'll try to finish out the list, going back to the Williams family when we have some of their representatives here, and going down through the Wilsons. Thank you for being here, brother.